Night Shift at the Hospital. Confronting Hidden Evil. Part 1. The Chaotic Beginning. The hospital was a labyrinth of dimly lit hallways and sterile, cold air. The night had settled heavily over its brick walls, pressing down on its weary inhabitants. Nurse Hannah adjusted her worn scrubs, attempting to shake off the exhaustion that had crept into her bones after countless hours of tending to patients. The clock struck midnight, a harbinger of long, lonely hours ahead, when a sudden, urgent commotion broke the uneasy stillness. The echo of rushing footsteps grew louder, accompanied by desperate shouts. The double doors to the emergency maternity ward slammed open, and chaos came crashing through. A gurney hurtled down the hallway, its metal frame rattling. On it lay a young woman, drenched in sweat and writhing in agony, her breath coming in ragged, desperate gasps. Blood pooled beneath her, leaving a crimson trail that marked her path. Hannah's heart seized at the sight. This was no ordinary case. The air was charged, thick with panic and fear. Clear path barked an orderly, his voice strained with urgency. Doctors and nurses converged on the scene like storm clouds, each carrying the weight of the situation. Hannah's legs moved on instinct, rushing to join them, even as dread clawed at her insides. The laboring woman's eyes fluttered open, locking with Hannah's. They were wide, terrified, pleading, "Please, help me," she gasped, her voice raw and trembling. Hannah gripped her hand tightly, feeling the cold sweat on her skin. "We're here. We'll get you through this," she said, trying to sound calm, but her own pulse thundered in her ears. Inside the delivery room, the air was heavy with tension. Bright overhead lights turned the space into a glaring, sterile arena, casting harsh shadows on every face. Blood soaked the sheets beneath the woman. "Too much blood. We need to stabilize her," Dr. Clark's voice rang out, commanding but edged with a fear that he couldn't quite hide. The seasoned physician assessed the situation with quick, practiced eyes, but even he knew they were racing against the clock. "She's losing too much blood," whispered one of the nurses, her voice trembling. Hannah caught her eye, a fleeting moment of shared terror. There was no room for hesitation. Instruments clattered as the team worked with frantic urgency. Hannah could barely hear her own thoughts over the beeping monitors and the woman's pain cries. "Push," Dr. Clark urged, his gloved hands working with precision. "You need to push." The mother gritted her teeth, her body convulsing with effort. Every muscle strained, every breath was a battle. Her screams echoed off the walls, a sound so primal it felt as if the hospital itself recoiled. Blood pooled faster, seeping through every layer. "Doctor." Clark's jaw tightened. "We have no choice. We have to deliver now." The team moved as one, each action precise but desperate. Hannah held the woman's hand as if it were a lifeline, whispering words of encouragement that barely registered. "You're strong, you can do this," but her own fear seeped through, trembling beneath the surface. The mother's eyes rolled back. Her breathing faltered, became shallow, and then nothing. Her body fell limp, her head lolling to the side. The heart monitor emitted a single, flat tone. The sound pierced the room, cutting through every frantic noise, freezing every movement. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. "She's gone," Dr. Clark whispered, his voice cracking. No one moved. The reality crashed over them, a mother lost. The baby, still and silent, had not survived either. The tiny form was pulled free, but there was no breath, no cry, only cold stillness. Hannah's knees buckled, and she gripped the side of the bed to steady herself. She stared at the lifeless woman, at the baby who would never know its mother's touch. "No," she murmured, shaking her head as if sheer denial could undo the horror. Tears blurred her vision, but she forced herself to move, to breathe. The air felt cold, as if death itself lingered, watching. The lights flickered once, twice. The temperature seemed to plummet. Hannah's breath hung in the air, visible in the sudden chill. A shadow moved across the periphery of her vision. She turned, but there was nothing there, only the oppressive weight of grief, and something else, something darker that she couldn't name. "We need to prepare the bodies," Dr. Clark said, his voice hollow. He peeled off his gloves with trembling hands, blood staining his fingers. "Another one," he muttered, barely audible. His eyes were distant, haunted. The gurney squeaked as they prepared to wheel the bodies away. Hannah lingered, unable to tear herself from the sight. A mother and child, now bound together in death. She had seen loss before, too much, too often, but this was different. It felt wrong. The air was thick, suffocating, as if the room itself had absorbed the pain and wouldn't let it go. The doors closed behind them, but the chill remained. Hannah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that something unseen had awoken in that room. She told herself it was exhaustion, the lingering trauma of what had just happened. But deep down she knew better. This was only the beginning of something far more sinister, and as the hospital settled into an uneasy silence, Hannah felt a cold hand of dread tightening around her heart.